Lando Norris masters the Monaco Grand Prix and captures his first win at the Principality. These are my 3 takeaways from the Monaco Grand Prix. And yes, let's start with Lando Norris. And what an incredible weekend this guy has had. I think coming in to Monaco, Norris really wanted to work on his approach to the entire weekend, because we've seen from Lando some ups and some downs. We haven't seen that consistency, that consistent line, much to which his teammate is doing, Oscar Piastri, where he's extremely consistent throughout the weekend. When we look at Oscar Piastri's weekend that has just gone by here in Monaco, wasn't the greatest for Oscar. And Lando, I felt, really showed up. And I think that's extremely important, and we'll dive a little deeper into that in just a moment. But on Saturday in Monaco, I want to start there with qualifying, because that was an impressive qualifying lap from Lando Norris to take pole position. When you're racing at Monaco, having track position is crucial. It is absolutely essential. Norris just looked like a different driver. He was attacking the corners, brushing the barriers, aggressive with the brakes, which is something we'll talk about in a minute. And he said following qualifying that this may be the best he's been since Australia. So if you think how far back that is, we're going all the way back to March, and he's feeling that this is his best sort of performance line that he's been on since then. And on Sunday, following the Monaco Grand Prix, he said he was proud of himself of what he was able to do in qualifying on Saturday than he was of the race on Sunday. Norris has been struggling in qualifying, but he's been super successful within the races, and he's been making up a lot of the ground that he's been losing with his qualies with how he's been racing this season. So it's the fact that he is confident in the races and he can control the car and do what he wants to do. It's the fact that he can't do certain things with this race car on Saturday qualifying. I think a lot of that has to do with the brakes. It really does look like that. They may need some type of an update that needs to be fixed on maybe either the braking or something that helps him get the confidence in the car for qualifying, that keeps the car in a balanced window where he can predict what he wants it to do. And those updates may not come for a while, so it seems. But I heard from Andrea Stella following the race, he felt that Lando kept the high standards. And he said that for himself, for the entire weekend, he held those standards at that level for the entire weekend. Norris did say that the car, he affirmed that the car does need some updates brought to it, and that is going to be interesting for us to watch as we sort of evolve and move through this season and they evolve their race car. Because yes, they do have a fast race car, but I think for Lando, he needs specific things with it for him to keep that consistency high. And that's something he's really going to need to do, is the consistency part. You know, we're going to go now to the Spanish Grand Prix, and again, that consistency in qualifying needs to be at that level, because he is fighting against the best drivers in the world, and he's trying to win a driver's title, one now that he's only 3 points back of his teammate Oscar Piastri, leading this championship. Max Verstappen just snapping at both of their heels as well. So this is going to be a 3-way drivers battle for the foreseeable future in this drivers championship. Takeaway 2 has to be George Russell's decision, cutting the corner, getting in front of Alex Albon, and then basically saying, you know what, the heck with it. I'm going to take the penalty, and whatever comes. And I'm thinking George must have thought he was going to get a 5-second time penalty. However, the stewards handed him probably one of the harshest penalties that you could for leaving the track, gaining an advantage, was a drive-through penalty. And I don't think George was really expecting to get a penalty that harsh. And the other part of it was that George came through to serve the penalty. and basically spit him out in front of Alex Albon, who he had cut the corner and passed because he was getting frustrated. But it put him behind Albon's teammate, Carlos Sainz. So he was back in the Williams sort of sandwich. But yeah, at the end of this one, heard from George Russell. I mean, he didn't really care. Like, he didn't care about the penalty. I think for Mercedes, they just didn't have any options in this race from where they were starting. Yes, they wanted to score points, but they knew that the only way to do it was to hang both drivers out there for as long as they could and either get a red flag or a safety car for something to pay off where one of them, either George Russell or Kimi Antonelli, could score some points. Alex Albon said that it was essentially the racing bulls that started all of this, teammates backing others up to allow teammates to score points. But once Williams sort of locked in on what the Racing Bulls were doing, they ended up adopting that strategy as well. And for Mercedes, they had already planned, by the sounds of it, they had already planned to do something similar within this race as well. And this wasn't the way that Williams wanted to go racing. I heard from both drivers, and it isn't something that they wanted to do. And then I heard from Toto Wolff. This was actually really funny. He got a text message from Williams team principal James Vowles, and the two are extremely good friends. James and Toto are, because James used to work for Toto over at Mercedes, and the text read from James to Toto, quote, "I am sorry. We had no choice given what happened ahead of us." And he's sending him this text message during the race, as the race is going on, and Toto answered back, "I know." So Toto really did understand exactly what Williams is doing, and I think that, Mercedes, they would have done the exact same thing. But this leads us to our final third takeaway, and that is this season's Monaco Grand Prix and the fact that every team had to do a mandatory two-stop pit stop in this race. First, I'll give you some thoughts from some who were in the paddock, who I heard from, and here's what we've got. Lando Norris said that he hated it. It made it more scarier for him, and the rules aren't made for the drivers. And the last thing he wants is manufactured racing. So that's from Norris's perspective on this two-stop mandatory pit stop that they had to do at Monaco. Leclerc said he thought that it was okay. It gave him a bit of hope at some points in the race, and then having to push through all of the traffic gave him, he felt, more opportunities. McLaren team principal Andrea Stella said they need to take a look at the size of the cars, and that's something we've always said. And he'll be interested to see what it's like with the 2026 cars next year. So for next year, the cars will be a little lighter. They will also be a little bit smaller at the same time. Not as fast as these cars, I don't think, though. But that will be interesting to see, and to see what they can build around that maybe for Monaco. Max Verstappen was just kidding when he said this, but he basically said that maybe they should think about using Mario Kart rules and start throwing out banana peels. And then George Russell also, he had a pretty funny idea as well. He should give drivers a button on their steering wheel for Monaco, and they could hit the sprinklers whenever they saw fit. Again, Russell was just joking. But personally, I am happy to see that the FIA and F1 took a chance on trying something different at a race like Monaco, where the racing can be challenging, but Saturday's qualifying is just so exceptional, and it's so exciting that sometimes it's hard you just can't carry that over into the Sunday's race. I appreciate the fact, though, they did take a risk and tried something different. My idea would be, maybe for next year, have the teams run all three compounds. So you can either start on the medium, you come in for a soft, and then you finish off on the hard tire. Just run them through all the compounds throughout the race. Maybe that might add a little spice to things, but It's going to be interesting to see how they pull this thing off moving forward. I mean, again, smaller cars will help. So one more race to finish off this triple header. We have the Spanish Grand Prix coming up next weekend. We'll have more right here on TSN.